Welcome to the Reluctant Ranch Hand, and we are making stuffed sweet peppers with quinoa today. This is a fun dish to make, and you get another day worth of leftovers depending on how big your family is. And what we're going to need to cook this is 6 peppers, and I get a 6-pack of peppers from Costco, which are 2 yellow, orange, and 2 red peppers. You're going to need 1 pound of ground beef, 1 pound of ground pork, and make sure that the ground pork is not seasoned because we're going to do our seasoning ourselves. 1 onion pureed, and I have about 8 cloves of garlic. Some of my cloves were small, so that's why I have 8. And I have about 3.5 cups of tomato sauce and some crushed red pepper flakes and 1 cup of fully cooked quinoa. And we're going to head over to the stove and start browning our ground beef and ground pork. And we're going to add our garlic and onion and our salt and pepper. So we have our 1 pound of ground pork, our 1 pound of ground beef, and this beef came from one of our steers here on the ranch. I have our whole onion and our garlic all browning and mixing together. This is going to take about 15 minutes, maybe a little longer, to get everything fully incorporated. We're also going to add your salt and pepper as well, because there's no seasoning at all in the ground pork or ground beef. So you can see everything is mixed together really well, and it's starting to brown. You'll see there's a lot of liquid. We want to get all of that liquid cooked off. So probably another 5-7 minutes, we should be able to add our 1 cup of fully cooked quinoa, our tomato sauce, some more salt and pepper, and our crushed red pepper flakes. The liquid is almost cooked out, and this is where you want to get your ground mixture to. And I'm going to give this another couple minutes, and then we're going to add our tomato sauce and our quinoa, our crushed red pepper, and we're going to salt and pepper to taste. With the tomato sauce, Costco has the 15-ounce cans of tomato sauce. I would probably do 1.5 cans of that. I'm actually using tomato sauce that I made on my own with tomatoes from my greenhouse. And there's probably about 3.5 cups in there, and we're just going to add that in here once this is fully cooked down. We're getting our tomato sauce in there. This is so good. I love making my own tomato sauce. I'll have to show you all how to do that as well, because I just canned it. And then my extra tomato sauce I have, put that in there. Oh, there's still some in there. Get all the good stuff. And I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Remember, you should salt and pepper every layer. And I turned the heat down to low. This is pretty much cooked through. Add a little pepper. And then I'm going to slowly get this all incorporated into the ground beef. And I do it one at a time. Before I'm going to add the quinoa after I get this really incorporated well. And if you don't like quinoa, you can actually use a cup of rice if that's more your style. I love quinoa. It's crunchy, it's an ancient grain, it's good for you, and it's a little different than how stuffed peppers are traditionally made. So this is looking really good. Everything's getting incorporated nicely. And this is the kind of red sauce that you want. Before I get the quinoa in, let's add some red pepper flakes. Now, red pepper, some people like it super spicy. I'm not one of those. So I would just say, I don't know, maybe that amount of red pepper. But again, if you like spicy, definitely add as much red pepper as you think. And I would taste it to see if it's got the heat that you like. Again, I'm not a big fan of spicy, So I'm pretty timid with how much spice I add to my foods, but this will give it a nice little kick. And now we're ready to add our quinoa. So I got the quinoa added to the mixture, and you're gonna have to be careful because this is pretty full. So you just take your time doing a lot of churning and folding. And I cook my quinoa, 1 cup of quinoa to 2 cups of chicken stock. And that gives it some really good flavor. And you're gonna see how nicely this incorporates in. And this is why I like using quinoa in my stuffed peppers instead of rice. It really blends in well with the ground beef and the tomato sauce. And once I get this incorporated really well, I'm gonna add a little bit more salt and pepper and then give it a final tasting. And once we've done this part, we're gonna have to let this meat mixture cool a little bit so we can actually work with our peppers and get our pepper stuff. So once this is fully incorporated, I'm gonna send this over to my kitchen island and let it cool down a little bit. And then I'm gonna bring a pot that's half filled of boiling water, because we're gonna actually boil our sweet peppers for about 2 to 3 minutes to get them soft, and you'll be able to stuff as much filling as you can into each. So this tastes amazing. Ground beef and ground pork together has such great flavor, and adding the quinoa, it's so delicious. And I added a little more salt and pepper, and I added a little more crushed red pepper flakes just to give it a little bit extra kick. And this is gonna be so delicious. And you're gonna have about 2 cups left over of meat filling, depending on how big your peppers are. And I actually eat it as a lunch. Don't throw away any of the extra filling. It is so yummy to eat, and you don't let it go to waste. So I am ready to put our peppers into the boiling water. And the reason why we do this is so the peppers become a little softer and are easy to work with, so we can stuff as much filling in as we can. And you want to make sure you fill your pot enough so the whole pepper is submerged. And you're going to do this for 3 minutes. And I'm going to see if I can get them all in at once. I think I can do it. Just gonna make a little bit more room here. And we're going to let these sit here in the boiling water for about. So these have been in the water about 3 minutes, and they're perfect. So just put them back in your baking dish. Make sure you drain all the water out of them. And this will help them cook as well in the oven in a timely manner, and make sure you can get as enough filling in each pepper as possible. And once you get these all drained and put back in your baking dish, we'll go over to the island and we'll start assembling and getting our filling put in these peppers. So now I'm ready to do some assembly here. My peppers have cooled off a bit, and you can see they're really flexible now. And I'm just using a regular size spoon, and we're gonna start filling each of these with the filling. And I recommend tasting your filling. It is so good with the quinoa, and it blends in nicely with the ground pork and ground beef. And I want to get these as stuffed as I fully can. So I actually stuff them all the way to the top, trying to not make too much of a mess here. Because we're going to actually add some water to this glass dish while they're baking in the oven. And while you're doing this, you may want to preheat your oven. We're going to cook these for 40 minutes at 350. So if you want, you can get your oven preheated while you're doing this so they can go straight in once you're all done with this. And as I mentioned before, you're going to have extra filling, and don't throw it away. Eat it as a meal. It's so good on its own, even without the peppers. But the peppers have really nice flavor. And it goes really well with the meat, the flavoring of the meat, and the sweet goes with the heat here in the mixture with the crushed red pepper flakes. So I'm gonna finish the rest of these, and then I have some extra mozzarella that I need to use up. We're gonna sprinkle some mozzarella on the top of these, and I'll show you how to do that and what to do with your foil, because we're gonna cover these while they cook in the oven so the cheese doesn't stick to the foil. So I got my peppers all filled, and I also added water to the baking dish between a 1/2 inch to 1 inch, because we're gonna cover this in foil and they're gonna actually steam inside. And I have about 2.5 cups of leftover filling. I'm gonna keep that. I'll eat that separate. I don't need the sweet peppers to do that. It's delicious. And I have some extra cheese I need to get rid of. So I'm gonna sprinkle some mozzarella on each of these just to give it a little cheese on here. And because this is tomato based and the quinoa actually goes really well with the tomato base and the ground beef and ground pork mixture. The cheese is a really nice touch. I don't usually add cheese to my filling because it gets really kind of stringy in there, so I just usually add it to the tops. And this would be a nice little topping to eat through while you're eating your peppers. Nothing too fancy, just a little cheese. Don't worry if it gets in your water. It's just gonna steam. You can clean it after it's done cooking. And I try to get peppers that stand well. This time around, most of my peppers actually stand really well, but some of them are a little smaller than I would like, because usually I can get like an extra cup of filling, but it still eats the same. Now that I got my cheese on there, a little trick is spraying your foil with cooking spray. On the side, that's going to be a food facing down. So I sprayed some cooking spray on my foil, and that'll help so the cheese doesn't get stuck to the top. So and I use heavy foil. I think heavy foil works best when you're cooking in the oven. And now I got this wrapped up pretty well. I'm gonna put this in the oven for 40 minutes and then they're ready to serve. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to the Reluctant Ranch Hand, and I'm also on TikTok and Instagram. Thanks.